welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. Hi, I am actually going to do my first review today, and it is for the Cinnamon Bun Book Store by Laurie Gilmore, which is the second book in the Dream Harbour series. So, a little bit of housekeeping. Let's start off. I'm going to talk about the book. I'm going to do a spoiler-free as I can synopsis. Then I'm going to talk about what I liked, then I'm going to talk about what I didn't like, and then we're going to wrap that up in the neat bow of a conclusion and go on to have a wonderful rest of our day. As I said, there will be a couple of spoilers. I am not going to give away the answers to the mystery that is in the book. So yeah, I'm not going to totally, spoil everything. But obviously I am going to talk about a few things that happen within the course of the book. That is kind of the nature of the beast, of talking about what I think worked and what didn't. Anyway, that said, I hope you enjoy this, and let's get into the synopsis. Synopsis. So, this book focuses on Hazel and Noah, who were minor characters in the last book, and Hazel works in the local bookstore, which is the Cinnamon Bun Book Store. And Noah is a local fisherman, and he also does day charters with tourists, and he also works in the local bar. So Hazel has decided that as she turns 30 in, I'd say about a month and a half, she wants to go off and have fun and go and enjoy what's left of the summer and, a little bit into the start of the autumn, and actually have some stories to tell, because she feels like she hasn't really lived her life fully. She ends up bringing Noah in on this. He's really excited about it, and he ends up planning a lot of the things based around clues that are left in the bookshop. We do not know through most of the book who has been leaving the clues. I am not going to tell you who has been leaving them. But yeah, she ends up telling him about them. They go on an adventure kind of based around this. So that is the crux of the story. Let's get into what I liked. Number one, the couple. I think they work really nicely as a couple. I really like Noah and Hazel. I think they are very complementary. I feel like their relationship wasn't rushed. I actually feel like they were also very healthy as a couple as well. They, clearly complement each other. They bring out good things in each other. I was reading through it and thinking, I can see these two growing old together and really going the distance. And part of that, I think, in fact, the main thing would be the fact that you already had a very solid foundation to build on. They weren't strangers beforehand. They clearly knew each other from before the start of the book. And you know that without having read the first book, although this is alluded to towards the end of the first book. And, a lot of people said Jeannie and Logan felt very insta-love, and I get that. But, they were, meeting for the first time, and obviously we got to meet, albeit very briefly, Hazel and Noah in the first book, so we did have a bit more foundation to build on, but I think it builds even more and better over the course of the second book. So yeah, I think they do work really well, and yeah, I can see them totally growing old together. So, number two, the setting. I really love the setting. I like Dream Harbour. It feels very lived in. It's a bit quirky. It's a bit silly sometimes, maybe. But what I like is you got a nice glimpse of the town in the first book, which Laurie Gilmore has really built on that. So you're actually starting to see more, and it's starting to flesh out without it being a massive info dump. It's little bits here and there, which I really like. It means that I can just enjoy the story, and while the town does feel like a part of the story, it's not just stopping everything dead to address the area where they're at, what they're doing. It's just sprinkled in nicely, which I really appreciate, because it can be hard to build a little world and not info dump in big ways. So I appreciate that, and yeah, as a fantasy fan, I have seen it quite a lot. So that was really nice. Anyway, number three, the character growth. Now, I mentioned a little bit in the first point that the characters grow together and complement each other. Now, I found that there was more character growth for the main male character this time. Noah had a lot more going for him. I found him a lot more interesting than I did with Logan. Now, slight spoiler territory in that Noah has moved around a lot and ended up finding himself in Dream Harbour. He does not have a great relationship with his family. He feels like a bit of a failure. They are very successful in business and he just didn't belong in that world. He really struggled. So behind the whole like carefree persona is a very troubled person. But it felt like he didn't go from I have problems to I am fixed. It was like, you know, he'd start kind of working. You could see him working on himself, getting knocked back, but he'd keep going and he'd keep going and he'd chip away at it. And eventually, you know, yeah, you're watching a really nice character arc that I really did feel lacked in the first book. And I really like that. And a lot of it came from him. A lot of it was internal, and Hazel, yes, did encourage it, but she wasn't doing the work for him, which is really frustrating sometimes when it's like manic pixie dream girl energy of come in, fix things and make the man's life all better. Absolutely didn't do that. And it didn't go that way with her and him either. While she had the things that she wanted to change about herself, she's the one who made the changes. And yeah, he assisted her along the way, but it was very much internal and it came from her. So I really liked watching them both grow as people over the course of the book and not just as a couple. Okay, number 4, the consent. Oh my freaking god, I love the consent in this book. I think it is brilliantly written, 10 out of 10, no notes, but here are my notes because that is what you signed up for with this video and that's what I'm on to deliver. So, the thing is, now, thankfully, Hazel is not some like sweet innocent virgin because honestly, I'll launch the book across the room if she had been because I find it kind of icky. You know, she's been round the track a couple of times, but by comparison, Noah has been around the track more times than a goddamn greyhound. At least that is what we're kind of led to believe. And it does come across as quite true. So the thing is, it could read a bit, oh, is he taking advantage of her? Is he being a bit gross? You know, is he a bit of a misogynist? And the thing is, he is constantly checking in every time he does something with her. And it is, I want enthusiastic consent. There's no like sure or okay. It's like, yes, tell me you want this. And I think it's done so well. There were times where I was just like, this is so perfect. You know, my little legs were kicking. I think they're not now because I'm sat on them. And yeah, that might have made me look a bit weird on the bus. But, you know, thankfully most of those moments I was sat on my bed enjoying this book. But it was just so well done. And this is what I want to see. I don't like dark romance. I find it very triggering as someone who has genuine diagnosed PTSD and trauma. And only my trauma wasn't diagnosed, but the PTSD was. But I then find like dubious consent or just straight up non-consent really, really upsetting, really mentally quite damaging. And so seeing this well-written, enthusiastic consent was just glorious. It was wonderful. And it was just so beautifully written and consistent as well. That is the main thing. It was also consistent. It wasn't a, well, you gave me consent once, so I'll do what the damned hell I like now. And there's one point where she's like, oh, you know, you don't have to keep asking if I'm okay and if I want this. And he's like, yeah, I do. Because I want to know you're okay and you're enjoying this and you like this. Because if you don't, I don't want to do it. And oh my God, I love that. And that was one of the things that really made me root for them as a couple as well. So yeah, absolutely wonderful. And I'm so, so glad it was there. And I could gush about how much I loved it. But I will cap it at that, I promise. And number 5, the smut. Oh, I love the smut. So I think this one is going to be very subjective. Now, I do not like purple prose, flowery language. It's just kind of makes me feel a bit icky. And I just don't find it sexy. And the thing is, if it is so like abstractly floral and out there that I'm looking at going like, he stuck his what and he did a what in her wearing the how now no, none of that in here. It is not blunt and it is not explicit. It is titillating. It walks a really fine line very well. So, you know, I know what is going on without it having some stupid description. It is very, he did this, and you know, it didn't feel mechanical, it didn't feel like medical thing, but it wasn't like, you know, there were no velvet shafts or anything like like that, you know. I don't like that stuff. So I found it titillating without being graphic. I found it highly enjoyable. It is how I like my smut written. And there is a lot more smut in this book than the last one. There is a lot of open door smuttery here. Now, if that's not your thing, you're really not going to enjoy this book. But it is my thing, it is very much my thing. I look for open door romance. So thoroughly enjoyed it. Brilliantly written. And yeah, that was just so much fun to read. I really, really enjoyed every single smutty scene. Really. Particularly, I think the one that was in the... Oh, where is it? The town hall. Yeah. That was a fun scene. Anyway, right. Now we've talked about what I liked, it's time to get into the what I wasn't such a fan of. Okay, number one, the mystery. Now, I've alluded to the mystery, the who is leaving these notes in the books. I actually felt like you kind of could have gone the whole book without it, and I really wouldn't have felt like I was lacking. It was okay. I didn't hate it, you know, and there were like stretches where it seemed to get kind of forgotten and pushed by the wayside, and those were actually the bits I enjoyed the most. Because I was like, I'm not feeling invested enough. It was fine, but again, if it had been cut out and maybe replaced by a different B plot, don't ask me what, but if it had been replaced by something else, I wouldn't be mad about it. I just felt like I wasn't so into it, and sometimes it felt a bit too silly and a bit too daft, and it didn't feel like it really worked within that kind of world, because it's not like a fantasy world or anything, it's rooted in reality, but this did not feel so rooted in reality. Like, how did you know she was going to be the one to pick the book up? How did you know she was going to see it? And how did you know she was going to go in on this being like this scavenger hunt, as they call it? I don't know, I weren't vibing with it. And I do find the mystery bit the weakest part of the books as a whole, because I'm now onto the third book. And again, there's like a bit of a mystery, and I'm like, where? I love the romances, but the mystery sides that kind of come in, I can kind of get on without them. You know, they don't ruin my enjoyment by any stretch of the imagination. I am, after all, into book 3, and I have another book in the series to read. So, yeah, it's just something it was the writing I found the weakest. So, that said, number 2, their descriptions. Most part, absolutely fine, but there was one point where a body was described as plush. And it kind of threw me. And it came up a couple of times, and I was like, plush is in she's a little on the like slightly heavier side, or plush as in plushy, she has the body of a teddy bear and she's covered in fur. It snapped out for me, you know, it snapped me out of my reading and my enjoyment, but that is tiny. And I also found, and this isn't actually something I hated, was that I don't know if I notice crutch words as a writer, or like terms that get used all the time, those like little old faithfuls that you always go back to, and every writer has them. Thankfully, they had been dialed back a bit, because his lips or her lips tipping into a smile every 5 minutes, they were constantly tipping, it was a bit much. But thankfully, that has dialed right back in this one, so I'm very grateful. And finally, number 3, the introduction of Kira. Now, Kira is the main female protagonist from the next book, and the one I'm currently reading. It was literally a couple of paragraphs, if that, and she came across awfully. And I just didn't feel like it was that necessary, and it painted her in such a bad light that unless I'd really loved the books, I might have just stopped reading the series there, or I would have glossed over this one entirely. But I did decide I wanted to give it a go, but it did sour it a bit for me going into the next book, so I didn't love it. And it's another thing that if they'd have cut that out, you really would not have noticed. And it was such a small thing, like, you know, literally like a page, if that, and it was done. It felt a bit unnecessary. It's something I personally would have put on the cutting room floor, as it were. But, you know, it's a tiny thing, and it hasn't put me off reading the next book. And, you know, I'm about 22% of the way through that one now, so, you know, I can't hate it. So, yeah, I about it. That is my thoughts. Do I want to give it a star rating? No, I don't. But would I recommend it? You know what? If you want something light and easy to read and a bit fluffy, you know, a little bit silly, yeah, totally, it's worth giving a go. You know, if you like a bit of decently written sex, absolutely. This is kind of a fun book, and I do think it's better than I do think it's better than the first one. And, you know, you don't have to have read the first book to enjoy this either. You know, you can absolutely dive in with this and still have a great time. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Do let me know if you've read it or if you're planning to read it, what you thought about it if you have read it. You know, comments and likes and subscribes are all very helpful to me as a very new channel, and I do deeply appreciate it. And yeah, I will be getting back onto Preptober videos. I haven't had a lot to really film or talk about, so I haven't made anything. I didn't want to waste your time or mine. So I'm going to be back on the Preptober videos later in the week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Take care. Bye!